r/ask Reddit. What had huge potential but didn't deliver? A FedEx truck stuck on top of a cliff. Edit. Thanks for the gold. At least the internet appreciates my dumb jokes more than my friends. The AP Physics student in me just got this one after staring at it for like 5 minutes. I didn't get it until you mentioned physics. Then I reread the question. Then it all started to come together. Amazon Prime Day was hyped as next Black Friday. Ads played on radio for weeks. And then day rolls around. And everything on sale is leftover garbage. Complete waste. Edit everyone, I get it, you found some obscure item for random amount off, so it was worth it to you. Fact of matter is it was advertised for weeks on TV and radio on how great it was going to be. First one they had. Pretty sure they said it was going to be as big or bigger than Black Friday and it was horrible, and now they don't even advertise it. One of my featured deals was an airplane seatbelt extender. I'm not close to being overweight, and it seemed to be an accurate representation of the rest of their deals. True story. My first flight and business trip was with my boss and his seat-own belt extender. I of course had a middle seat. The window guy was over 250 and large. My boss raised the armrest. I strained for 10 minutes trying to get my music player out of my bag under the seat between my legs. When I finally did, I discovered the battery was dead. 3 hours of human sandwich. What about that phone that was like a puzzle, where you would have to change different parts of it to get better camera, more storage and so on? It died out pretty quietly. Project Era. I was so freaking hyped for that. I thought Google Plus was gonna be huge until they started trying to force it too much and essentially killed it. Wish that wasn't the case. Cause Facebook is a cesspool nowadays. The forced integration into YouTube was the most unnecessary thing ever. It turned people from being indifferent to actively disliking it. Not to mention the whole closed beta thing, where only certain people were let in and they were assigned 10 invites or something. Hype was so big, but the closed beta lasted so long that no one ever cared once it was released to the public. I was given a beta invite by a friend, as were a few others, but everyone stopped using it within a few weeks because there was basically zero users or content compared to Facebook. The idea is great, but the way Google rolled it out and tried to implement it was a disaster and ultimately ruined the platform. No Man's Sky feels like the correct answer. Just imagine, they propounded, in a universe surrounded by unbounded starry places, a safari for the spaces of unending, exponential, indeterminate potential. Just imagine, they related, if the journey that awaited was an endless expedition on a cosmic inquisition through a galaxy of wonder, over, roundabout and under. Just imagine, they imparted your adventures through uncharted and exceptional creations, far exceeding expectations. Can you picture such a setting? Well, that ain't the game you're getting. I knew I was gonna see this here. I always hear about it being bad, but what exactly went wrong with it? 3D TV. It was all the hype a few years ago, but it turned out to be crappy. Same with curved TV. I prefer to be happily behind the wave of newest tech as a consumer. It's kind of like living below your means for money, but I live below my maximum allowable access to technological improvements. This way other people lining up to buy the newest and greatest can report any issues and eventually rate the best hardware. This way by the time I get around to upgrading, my price is lower and I can make an informed decision. Windows Phone. They really screwed the pooch with that one. So Microsoft jumped the gun when they held a public funeral for the iPhone back in 2010. Link, http://www.dailytech.com Microsoft plus holds plus mock plus funeral plus for plus iPhone plus BlackBerry article 19600 HTM. This doesn't seem like it would ever be a good idea. Sears. They had the potential to become bigger than Amazon. They had millions of people using their catalog, so it wouldn't be hard to transition to the internet, but instead Sears failed to change with the times and is just another hardware store. Failing hardware store. They closed stores in Ontario and maybe rest of Canada the last few weeks. I'm pretty sure they completely went under in Canada. I don't know of any still running in Alberta. The App Yik Yak. They really shot themselves in the foot when they forced users to post with profiles. Anonymity was what made the app enjoyable. By using profiles they drove away most of the user base. Even after removing profiles the damage was done. I read an interview with the creators where they said they were basically trying to make it into the next Slack and pivot to the business market, which remains one of the stupidest things I've ever heard. Pokemon Go. It continues to kind of blunder along. Feels very much like a waste of potential. No trading system. Pretty broken X-Raid system. Still no tracker, to name a few points of contention. What's funny is how obvious it was from the start. What if we took Pokemon? Yep. And then we made it mobile? Yep. And then we add some geolocation aspects? Yep. And then what if we remove all the combat and team building and strategy and basically 80% of what Pokemon even is to begin with? What? Agreed. They had such a strong start but messed up everything after. There was such a shortage on the wrist things that by the time they were in stock I had completely lost interest. Microsoft Surface circa 2008 was supposed to be an interactive table surface for home, bars, restaurants, etc. Edit. Here's the second commercial showing the other features it promised. This reminds me of the time when the Zippo app on iPhones was cool. The only reason I wanted an iPod was to mess with the Igon app. Dippin' Dots. They made big promises about it being the ice cream of the future. The future is here and my ice cream is, sadly, not in dot form. I really liked Dippin' Dots, but it was like $5 for a small 6 oz. This was back in early 2000, so I could not afford it. It's also why it never caught on. They seriously are yummy, but you need a special kind of freezer to store them, so people can't just get them for home. Places overcharge because it isn't something people can easily get. Sadly last I heard they filed for bankruptcy, but they are still kicking. In Kentucky they are a big deal because without them the town of Paducah wouldn't be anything but some guy's farm. My favorite is the banana split. Now I got to find a zoo or theme park to get my fix, man. Google Glass. It's actually still a good product in industry. Having a heads-up display is a great idea for people like plumbers and HVAC technicians and welders. As a welder you can bet your ass I'm not spending a shitload on safety glasses that are gonna get burnt and scratched up in a week. The film The Monuments Men. Amazing cast. George Clooney, Matt Damon, Bill Murray, John Goodman, Cate Blanchett, with a really interesting story about a special army unit on a mission to go all over Europe to take back stolen artwork and antiquities from the Nazis at the end of World War II. I went into expecting a mix of Indiana Jones and National Treasure, but overall it was a mostly forgettable film. Not terrible, but nothing I necessarily want to watch again, although I'm a fan of the entire cast. As a history buff, it's a movie I wanted. The story of the men who fought to preserve our history during our bloodiest war. I just wish it was more. It was good. Just nothing I'd come back to watch often. I wish I could find a clip of the scene where George Clooney interrogates the Nazi guy. So good. Edit. Yes. Thanks for finding that. Microsoft's Kinect. It's the original Echo Dot. Microsoft just didn't know how to use it correctly. RIP. The applications beyond video games using the camera are pretty awesome though, so I'm still grateful it exists. Have you seen the DI sandbox someone on Reddit made? It's pretty awesome. And with the right software, you can use it as a 3D scanner so you can print plastic duplicates of whatever you want. Segway. What America needs is less exercise. I remember them saying it would revolutionize the way we travel. Now it's just rent-a-cops and New York tours. When your invention is a running gag in the Paul Blart films, something went wrong. SW. Battlefront 2. They actually listened to fans from BF1 and added story mode and space combat. But EA clearly wanted this to be a vehicle for making players accept paying far more for gaming experiences and shitty pay-to-win mechanics. In addition to the loot box shitbaggery, they had exclusive rights to the world's biggest crossover IP. A launch alongside the most hyped movie in years, an engine giving the most realistic visuals, and the game modes players wanted, and they managed to duck it up. Everyone who worked on those decisions is a massive failure at their jobs. I can't imagine how the developers at DICE feel. They obviously poured a lot of their time and effort into their game, but shitty management by the EA higher-ups pretty much ruined their game. To me it's still just a Battlefield reskin. Battlefront was about classes, not loadouts. Guess you gotta have something to progress to. The Sega Channel, a pre-internet service that allowed you to let you play Sega Genesis games over cable. It was a little ahead of its time and wasn't very successful. I loved this so freaking much. It wasn't just a little ahead of its time, it was way ahead of its time. It was during the time when video games were seen as just another toy and no parent wanted to invest in a monthly bill to play video games. Cowboys and Aliens, let's make a movie starring James Bond and Indiana Jones. Toss in indie darlings Paul Dano and Sam Rockwell. Have Lost co-creator Damon Lindelof handle the screenplay and Jon Favreau the directing. Oh yeah, Spielberg, Grazer and Howard will all serve as producers. Sounds like a can't miss formula. Yay, but it had Olivia Wilde naked in it, so it's arguably a great movie. It had Olivia Wilde naked in it, oh, that explained something. I haven't seen the movie. Last New Year's I was staying in a holiday apartment with some friends. People I'd known about a year and had been hanging out with pretty regularly. We'd been to the beach and the way one of my friends did her hair that day made me notice for the first time that her face is extremely similar to Olivia Wilde's. Just the shape of her face and eyes. So offhandedly back at the unit while she was out of earshot, I asked the others in the group, is it just me, or does they look kinda like Olivia Wilde? Double quote. One of the other girls burst out laughing and said, oh my god, please say that to her. So I did, and she said something along the lines of it's Cowboys and Aliens all over again. I'm guessing she didn't like being compared physically to someone who happened to be naked at the time. Days. At first only the mod existed and then a huge barrage of shitty clones. The concept is so good, but no one ever got it right except for the original, which had a lot of bugs and bad graphics. It's a shame really. 063 is looking good, but it's so overdue that it isn't even relevant anymore. PUBG filled the Days void for anyone interested in those types of games. Suicide Squad. So that's it. Huh, we some kinda huge potential that didn't deliver? Suicide Squad was the first movie I heard of that I figured I wouldn't want to see. Then I saw the trailer for and decided to see. Like really? That's never happened to me. Needless to say, I was disappointed. The Aragorn and Last Airbender movies edit. Wow, this is my most upvoted comment. I'm so happy many of you agree. There has never been an Airbender movie. There's no war in Ba Sing Se. DC movies. Just most cinematic universes nowadays. They're so rushed it's really easy to tell. Marvel pioneered it, and is arguably the best at it. They do with cinematic universe what others are failing to do. Everyone nowadays wants their own CU, but they don't do what Marvel does. Marvel is doing closed stories set in the universe with some connections to it, but they are always a self-contained stories. But now come and look at some movies that wants to be a CU and you start to see the difference. E.g. The Mummy is cinematic universe movie, but it fails to be a self-containing movie. It can't stand on its own. It forces CU elements into you, showing they are doing CU. How many characters, teasing for something else, while forgetting to do their own story set in that universe. But Marvel not. And that's why it works. It is basically like an episodic TV show instead of a soap opera which deals with nothing while trying to act like they do anything. But they can't stand on their own legs cause they contain none story at all on their own. That's why Marvel's CU is working so far. Spore, the original No Man's Sky. I think the reason I still like Spore is because I was too young to understand or even care about the hype when it came out. I had no concept of being let down because my only expectations were pretty much wow, I want to make cool creatures and shit. The early stages of Spore are still ducking autumn, albeit brief and ultimately moot because the rest of the game is so stale and sucks ass. Sims 4. Graphics are beautiful but the gameplay aspect is lacking a bit in my opinion. All I want is for Sims 2 to be amped up. That's all. If there is an afterlife, I will have that game there. I do like the mood thing, the body morphing, and the ability to do different shit at the same time. but I went back to Sims 3 and even without those it's still so much better. Johnny Football. He has 2 of the Browns' last 4 wins. Hahaha, that's an amazing stat. GTA Online. The trailers made it look like you'd never need to leave the house again. The final result ended up being a barely functioning microtransaction fest aimed at children. Pretty much what all gaming communities seem to be devolving into today. Cube World. Now you just have bitter and delusional people fighting in r/Cube World day in and day out for the last 4-5 years. Mass Effect Andromeda. I think this might be the worst 100 hours I've invested in a video game. I didn't even hate it. It was just so mediocre. My life. I know this is an easy answer, but the DCEU. They have literal decades of stories, hundreds of millions of dollars per film, and highly respected and talented movie makers both in front of and behind the camera. Not to mention a public clearly wanting more superhero films. Ignore r/movies and look at actual audience numbers, as well as a pretty clear roadmap thanks to the trail blazed by Marvel. Instead of the genre-defining, real-world films we were promised, we get sloppy, rushed garbage that somehow manages to be bloated and confusing while also being too short to give us any sense of character motivation and identity. What's worse is that people called this happening years in advance, and still barely anything has changed. This isn't some case where they proved all the naysayers wrong. This isn't Hugh Jackman and Wolverine, or Heath Ledger and the Joker. No, this is people making mistake after mistake and refusing to learn anything from it. The end result is that Marvel has a much loved stable of internationally recognizable heroes and villains across dozens of hours of cinema, and DC is already looking to retcon everything with the Flashpoint situation just 5 films in. I know I'm not in any way the first person to say all this, but it truly is one of the largest misfires in all of cinematic history. Pre-Kevin Feige, names like Superman and Batman were light years ahead of characters like Hawkeye and even Iron Man. But with the MCU now towering over the DCEU, an entire generation will grow up with an entirely different common knowledge of superheroes. When you change the popular consciousness in part due to your own incompetence, you had huge potential but didn't deliver. Exactly, and with Black Panther tracking to be a huge success, it is likely that it will surpass Justice League financially. I mean, duck. If an obscure character like Black Panther can earn more than a ducking Justice League movie, something's up. That movie looks crazy awesome. Can't wait to pass a bunch of posters about Aquaman or whatever the duck on my way to see it. Pied Piper VChat. Pokemon Go. Didn't even come close. Is there anything out there was actually Decembertus and Og? Edit. I can swipe. Incredible how much Niantic ducked up. They still made a lot of money, but they could have made 10 times that easy if they didn't say, oh, you don't want a tracker, and you definitely don't want good servers. I gave up on this game a while ago, but I always hated that you couldn't battle wild Pokemon to increase your capture success, like, you know, in actual mainline Pokemon games, and it was rather boring battling the same damn Vaporeon, Voltian, Jolteon at my nearest gym over and over. Al Capone's Vault. Hey there, fellow middle-aged person. Mighty No. 9 Dear God. Make the bad guys cry like an anime fan on prom night. Freddy Adu. Destiny 2. Destiny 2 again. Robert Griffin 3. The Golden Compass film. Sega Dreamcast. I think the Dreamcast's biggest flaw was that it was ahead of its time. It had the ability for online play and the memory cards has screens on them. Sega didn't really know what to do with it and they were pretty much dead anyway at that point. I'd say the internet as a tool to promote world happiness and progress in everyday life. 1 million ways to spend time. Useful info seems to get lost recently. It has been around for at least 15 years for the masses and recently there are more weird ways that it is used that we couldn't have figured out 15 years ago. Fake news, censorship. It seems to be getting less useful in recent years, more mundane, less informative and generally less promising. Instagram? Oh well. Xbox Kinect. The rivalry of Dan and Dave. Link in case you weren't following the 1992 Olympics. For those who should remember, Rome 2 Total War, never forget, 2013. War in Iraq was supposed to cost 80 billion, pay for itself, and end terrorism while bringing peace to the Middle East. Instead cost 7 trillion and destabilized the world. War pigs and big oil are happy though, face with money symbols on the eyes and tongue. The so-called hoverboards, what a disappointment. My personal favorite is the guy who was attempting to be eaten alive by a snake and choked halfway through. Connie 2012. Whoa, you made it to the end? You're a ducking beast. I'll cut you a deal. Smash like and subscribe for more curated content bruh. It's free and that's a great price.